Fernando Alonso is set to be announced as Daniel Ricciardo's replacement at Renault on Wednesday. The rumour is that team boss Cyril Abiteboul informed his senior mechanics and staff that their 2021 driver lineup is decided, and it will include the return of a driver they've worked with before. Jolyon Palmer aside, the most obvious and likely candidate is Fernando Alonso. The Spaniard is currently going through his second year away from Formula 1, having walked away at the end of 2018. Disillusioned and tired after years of mediocrity from McLaren and Ferrari, there was no doubt that Fernando's driving remained as sharp as ever when he decided enough was enough. But he's never closed the door on F1 completely, always saying a return is possible under the right circumstances. But are these now the right circumstances? Renault were trying to ramp up their F1 competitiveness when they signed Daniel Ricciardo in a brilliantly timed swipe at former customer team Red Bull Racing. That was at the height of their divorce proceedings, but the Australian seems to have been caught out by the scale of Renault's conservatism. His first season with the team was spent scrapping for points rather than podiums, amid lots of rumour that Renault wanted out of F1 at the end of the current Concord agreement this year. While it now looks that Renault are set to stay for at least a while longer, they've lost momentum. While the team were best of the rest in 2018 when Ricciardo signed up, they now appear mired in the midfield with no signal that they're moving forwards. So stagnant have their efforts become that customer team McLaren look to have a clear edge over them. Immediately following pre-season testing, having tested the car that Renault will use in 2020 and 21, Ricciardo decided to join that customer team instead. That's hardly a glowing endorsement of the Renault RS20, while Cyril Abiteboul took a swipe by hinting that Ricciardo's confidence in the squad had faded. Fernando Alonso's glory days in Formula 1 are a long time ago now, with Renault a very different team to the one he won the 2005 and 2006 titles with, forming a perfect political partnership with the controversial Flavio Briatore when the Italian ran the team. Alonso was the chosen son and used that position to lead the team as their performance reached a sufficient level to beat the mighty but fragile McLaren that was in 2005 and the resurgent Ferrari in 2006. After a short but acrimonious year with McLaren, Alonso withdrew back to his safe haven, but Renault's powers were already slipping by 2008. One or two controversial wins later, and Alonso left again, this time for Ferrari. Fast forward to today and Briatore, he's well out of the picture. The team is now a much more French affair, with Cyril Abiteboul in charge and reporting back to French authority. With performances slipping back, there's now a sense of the team being adrift, without the focal point that Daniel Ricciardo was supposed to provide. There's very few drivers that could help to inspire the team to start making the strides forward that McLaren's performances suggest Renault should be capable of. Fernando Alonso is one of them, but is there sufficient reward for him to bother? Both he and Renault have teased social media in recent weeks, sharing pictures and wallpapers of themselves in the glory days of their partnership. But close friend and former rival Mark Webber doesn't think Alonso will return. He was speaking on the F1 Nation podcast when he said, "We know Fernando is extraordinary. He's had an insane career, but he's not at his peak anymore. It'll be harder for him to do what he did in the past. A Fernando at 9 out of 10 is clearly still good for someone to have, but Alonso is a serial winner, and being mid-pack is what he left Formula 1 for." He was determined to say that if I can't fight for the podium, then I don't want to be in Formula 1. That was the last message we had. I don't see an opportunity for podiums for him in terms of a team that can do that for him. Alonso turns 40 next season, meaning that a long-term project is something he's unlikely to be willing to sign up for. A huge rules reset is on the way, but not until 2022, and the 21 car is the same car Daniel Ricciardo leapt out of straight after testing it. Renault show no signs of being able to break into the stranglehold on the sport held by Merc, Ferrari and Red Bull Racing. So without immediate reward, what is the point for Fernando? Webber continued to say, "We know that he's a racer, he's missing it a lot, but what's the focus? Is he going to be loyal to a new regime, signing a 2 or 3 year contract in Formula 1? Or is it just for 1 year? Or you're 4 months in and the team is looking for someone else? So what's the point? I think it would be very, very challenging for him to stay motivated for 2 years in the middle of the field. In my opinion, signing Fernando Alonso for 2021 would be nothing more than an exercise in nostalgia, trying desperately to recapture the magic of an era that has passed for both parties. Renault need to be looking to the future and making bold moves and signings. Cyril Abiteboul admitted over the Austrian weekend to feeling the pressure on his job security, and a big statement with clear progress is needed in the short term to help underlines Renault's presence in the sport, especially as they have no engine customers from next season. A smarter signing would be Guanyu Zhou, who is a product of the Renault Driver Academy. Now the leading light of the programme in Formula 2 after the sad passing of Antoine Hubert, Zhou looks ready to make the step up to Formula 1, particularly with performances like what we saw over the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Having an Ocon-Zhou pairing would revitalise the team that is struggling to be seen as anything but a stepping stone for drivers trying to find a haven. Just like Ferrari with Charles Leclerc, Renault need to take a big gamble and promote from within and justify the money and time invested in their driver programme with a young and exciting talent who's eager to impress. Otherwise, what's the point of their driver programme? Plus, think of all that Chinese sponsorship money. That's it from me for the moment. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter as well, @ThomasMarr on F1.